the National Energy Program came out in October of 1980, and if you read it, it was a very good philosophy for the whole country. But if you got down to the details and the implementation of the program, it was a disaster. And I can remember that on my anniversary, the November 7th, which we were at the Westin Hotel having supper in the Owl's Nest, and finally my wife Lois turned to me, she said, "You're not even thinking about what we're doing. Go and phone Mr. Lalonde." So I left and went out the officer's manning, and I knew it was about 11 o'clock in Montreal, and I phoned Mr. Lalonde, and I said, "Mark, I don't like the National Energy Program, and I want to come buy you supper tomorrow night in Montreal." He said, "Where are you?" I said, "I'm in Calgary having my anniversary supper with Lois, and I wasn't paying attention, so that's why I'm calling you." And I said, "Please bring Claire with you tomorrow." He said, "Mooney, when you get to Montreal, you phone me." So I flew out the next morning to Montreal and phoned Mr. Lalonde, and he said, "Where are you?" I said, "I'm at the Bonaventure, and I'll buy you and Claire supper." And they arrived. We were certainly cordial to each other, and then we got into the National Energy Program when I told him that it was an absolute disaster, a great philosophy, but an absolute disaster when you try to implement it. Because what it was going to do, it was going to allow the major companies, which the majority of them were American companies, to continue through that period, as they always do when we get something that's adverse in our industry. They're capable financially of making it through. But what the National Energy Policy was going to do to Canadians, because there were so many Canadians here during the period just before 1980 that were going out on their own, forming oil companies and forming land companies and various other associated industries, such as the service business, with the oil companies, that they weren't going to survive because of the taxation that it caused and the reduction of capital that was coming into Alberta. So it was pretty much a disaster. Mr. Lalonde did not agree with me, but I have to say at a much later date, he did say, "Bill, you were right," and it was not a good program. It lasted until the Mooney government got in, and they had the Western Accord, which shut down the National Energy Policy. The other thing was the PGRT, the Petroleum and Natural Gas Revenue Tax, which took a lot of money out of the province, and to get rid of it, the Mooney government had the Western Accord. It was to have the federal government get with the Western ministers of particularly Saskatchewan, Alberta, and BC, to get rid of the taxation and get back to a free flow of revenue more to the provinces than to the federal government. And it got rid of the unfair taxation to the provinces and a more even distribution of money coming out of the industry to both the federal and provincial governments.